All right. Hello, superhero friends. Welcome to the very late night comic book read. I am your host, Black Canary, but I'm doing a very specific version of Black Canary. Actually, you know what? Let me see if I can try to. It didn't do anything to not mirror it. That's so crazy. Okay, that didn't work. Apologies. Last time that did work, I had to flip the, no. Okay. Oh, that worked. Okay. Oh, I did it. Yay. All right. Hello. Welcome everybody to the comic book read. I am your host this evening, a version of Black Canary. I'm doing a very special reread. We're going to do a little section of it that has to do with Black Canary because I'm going to tell you guys why I like Black Canary so much. I've done actually another reading, I think a little while ago, as Black Canary, but this one's special because we're going to do some fun stuff tonight. So I hope you guys are comfy. Let me just make sure my camera's all set. I hope you guys are good. It's been a little hot minute. I was busy being dog mama. But I've got everything sorted. My dog is basically a miracle. I thought I was going to have to put in some money for some surgery, but we went to see the vet today and he was like, "Guess you have a miracle, baby." I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of do miracles." So we do also alternative healing stuff as well. Oh, hey, Kev's Collective Spot, Chris, Mary Kirkwoods, Marty's Lover. I hope you guys are all great. We're going to do, I have to return. So just to introduce you guys to the live stream, I'm Rachel Z. I love comic books. Oh my gosh, let me put this. I actually have it flipped the proper way, you guys. You can read along with me. So I don't know if you guys have read Bombshells ever before, but Bombshells exist in this alternative universe in the DC world where basically you have, it's kind of like 1940s pinup. My friend Dee Dee Star, she lives out in Palm Springs and she does burlesque shows. And so it's kind of like that kind of vibe. And I'm kind of looking for girls to do different versions of the Bombshells. Like, for example, in this universe, all the Batgirls, they're literally Batgirls, literally holding a baseball bat. So, and they're all super hot females. I love them, and it's a great inspiration for many a cosplay. So I hope that by putting out this story, I need to return this library book tomorrow because it is very overdue. I ran out of renewals, and I'm so behind on organizing my library. So thank you for all of your patience. I am going to have alternative ways of which to find me. I don't think TikTok will be banned, you guys, right? But I have a new goal for 2025, which is to get on AM radio. So you guys remember back in the day, Christina 777, thank you for the rose. So quick story before I start Bombshells. I'm going to be reading starting from the Black Canary part. Oh, thanks again, Christina. I like your name too, the little 777. I take that also as a wink from the universe. But when I went to go visit Winnipeg, my dad, which is really great, it was a big bonding moment for me and my dad, but I had noticed that my dad had no longer been listening to the 6 p.m. news, which I was super pumped about. The news is fear porn. He instead was listening to things old vinyls, music, and AM radio, long form radio, which is if you go on long road trips and places where you can't get reception, AM radio is the thing. So I am working on getting on AM radio, and so stay tuned for that for today's harmonics. We are actually also going to be back live coming up the end of the month. So I'm actually getting the whole production schedule squirreled away. Is that a word? Squirreled away. Oh, thanks, Papa Dave. Yeah, I'm doing 1940s Black Canary. So you know what? Without further ado, let's just jump into the comic book. I'll answer any questions you may have as we go. So I'm going to jump in kind of like a dream sequence, just in the middle. So you see here, we're oh my gosh, Black Canary. So I try to do kind of like I had her kind of top. Let's see if I can, that. So before we start, just to give you guys some background information, in this universe, Black Canary actually lives in Hawaii. I would actually also live in Hawaii. So Black Canary lives in Hawaii with Green Arrow, and they have a radio station. So their radio station, which was kind of funny because I'm like, I want to have a radio station. So Black Canary has a radio station, but what has ended up happening is that it's been hijacked. So, like mind control, weird frequencies in the airwaves. So they've, S.H.I.E.L.D. in this universe has gone to Honolulu, Hawaii to investigate. So I'm just going to turn this light a little bit out this way so to reduce the glare. So let's just get into the comic book. Like, as I said, just like a dream sequence, we'll just like jump in, see where we land. Okay. Who goes there? Did you see? Did you just see? Sugar, honey, iced tea. Black Canary. You're the Black Canary. I heard you were some famous recluse. Or was it that you were a wild rambler packing up your roadhouse in the dead of the night? What are you doing all the way out here? Well, it seemed like a nice night. Oh, hey, Gym Masters. Hope you're having a good night. Welcome to the comic book read. We are reading Bombshells United, which is one of my... I have to return this tomorrow, so I wanted to make sure that I got it in the books. So I put together my 1940s Black Canary cosplay, and I'm reading you from her section because there's a few other stories in here. I've read from this story or from this comic book before as Zatanna, so this is my first as Black Canary, or my version of Black Canary. So I hope you like it. I like Black Canary. So fun fact about Black Canary, she has a lot in common with Silk Scepter. I always mispronounce Scepter from Watchmen, but bear with me, in the sense of there's this element of a mantle being passed on from like mother to daughter. So Black Canary's mother is also a Black Canary, right? And Black Canary is actually one of the oldest comic book superheroines in in comic book lore, if we want to look at like history and like be all like historical about it. But it's also the concept, too, that canary has a canary cry, right? This scream that can shatter steel. Now, this is not a genetic thing, right? I did some research, and it's more of like, it's a secondary, in X-Men, they have like secondary mutations, right? Like how Wolverine isn't born with adamantium claws. He has a secondary mutation based on the fact that he has healing factor, right? So similar with Canary, like her canary cry that can shatter steel is a secondary, I don't want to say like, it's just like not a mutation, but it's like almost like an evolution kind of situation. So if we think of like us developing superpowers as perhaps something that comes along later and not necessarily something you're born with. To all you out there with similar throat chakra superpowers. I think singing can be part of that too, but I think Dazzler is another superhero to look into when it comes to that. Okay. So, Black Canary has shown up. One of the girls is saying, like, I thought you were some, like, famous recluse. Like, what are you doing all the way out here? So we're now on this panel right here. Okay. My name is Karen Beecher. I go to the Honolulu Academy for Extraordinary Young People. You know what? Someone needs to be making that school, and I think it's me. So she goes to the Honolulu Academy of Extraordinary Young People. Down the hill. The academy. You must be bright as hurricane lantern for that place. Bright as a hurricane lantern. I don't know what she means by that exactly. Thank you for the follow, Jim. I hope I can get through most of this evening. I started late as per usual. If you guys are familiar with my lives, I I will make sure that I'm live, but sometimes when I put together some of the cosplays, it takes me longer than I anticipate. So I appreciate all your patience. Okay. The Academy, you must be bright as a hurricane lantern for that place. I don't suppose one student in 100 would hike up these hills for a botany class. Well, literature, actually. We're reading the Odyssey, and we're at the part where Odysseus meets the Lotus Eaters. Oh, how interesting. I do love the Odyssey. My hubby was saying he watched the newest version with Ralph Fiennes and didn't like it so much. I would agree with him. I like that old one that had Armand Assante as Odysseus, and Vanessa Williams is in there, and she plays Calypso, and she's a hottie. And so they actually do the whole journey of Odysseus as he's like traveling through the islands, you know, the Island of Women, the Lotus Eaters, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to get into the Odyssey just yet. I have a whole segment planned out of Greek and Roman myths and like my take on it. I actually also did some Wonder Woman Historia reading with you guys, which was kind of cool because there's a cool take on that, on Greek and Roman myths. And I love mythology. So, and I do think of comic books as kind of like a new myth, a new take on myth, our own sacred stories. So, bonsoir, Mademoiselle Rachel. Oh, hi, OP. I hope you're well this evening. I love French too, as well. I wish I spoke more of it. I grew up in Winnipeg. I grew up in St. Boniface, so I took French from like kindergarten to grade 8. And I feel bad. All I can do is really like conjugate verbs and stuff. I didn't really learn how to like speak French, but it's a beautiful language. Like, for example, we have Love Month coming up next month, right? Like Valentine's Day, all that kind of stuff. And in French, you have multiple words for love, like je t'aime, j'adore, and even like this idea of like agape love versus like altruistic, like all these different types of love. There's nuance behind it versus in English, we have like one word for love where like I love coffee, I love snacks, I love my husband, I love my dog. These are different loves, right? So I think that bring me a higher love, like that kind of thing. And that's why like I love songs. We have ways of us explaining out the different ways in which we love each other. And I think there's something to be said there too when I get into the Green Lantern cosplay and the Green Lantern stuff. You were born on Valentine's Day, OP? Are you like, that's kind of beautiful, actually. English parents, French school. Yeah, so I had a lot of friends who were French immersion, right? So all of your schooling was in French. And French is more of like a root language, right? Like English, if we think about it, is I think like a younger language. And in my new show coming up, I'm going to be doing Rachel's etymology, you know, like when you break down a word to their phonetic sounds, right? Because what are words but symbols, and what are symbols but representations of vibration and sounds that we make even in our head and how our throats work. So that's all about how we derive meaning. And when I used to be a global manager, I used to speak to like countries from all over the world, 137 countries. And so but everyone spoke English, or at least strove to speak English. It's only us in the Western world that like kind of go like, well, we speak English, and they like kind of got mad at me for being like, we're kind of English centric, you guys. Oh heaven, oh my goodness, my heaven angel girl. Give me like, can we come back in battle in like 10 minutes? I'm gonna get through this. I went off on a tangent. Foxy, I knew there'd be talk of lanterns when I got the invite here. You heard my call, Foxy. Foxy, actually, what lantern color would you be? Because I actually got my hands on the War of Light comic book. So stay tuned for a subscribers only reading of that, because it's a digital copy, so I can actually have it up close and stuff. Yes, I have seen the Unbreakable movie with Bruce Willis. OP. I feel really sad about what's happened to Bruce Willis, you guys, right? Like, you know, like but it's like his mental health, or but, you know, I'm like sad that he broke up with Demi Moore, you know, like, and Bruce Willis has embodied a lot of like that cool guy. Like, I loved Red 2 with John Malkovich, and like Helen Mirren in that is like, I'm like, I want to be you when I grow up, Helen Mirren. But you know what? It's just like this idea of aging, and my hubby, I love him for this because Prince also said this as well. Like, we shouldn't fall into this whole like age trap where, so I'm turning 40 next year, guys. 40 years old, yay! And I'm actually really happy about it because for most of my life, everyone thought I was like super young, and so you think that that's good until you're a manager, right? And then they think you're like an intern, and you're like, no, respect me. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna get into the reads so that maybe we can get into a battle, and I can let you guys in on what the proposed schedule is coming up for the next, this upcoming week, because I've got a few things that I need to do, including some oracle readings with you guys and some tarot readings. So let's see. Thank you, Ginger Beast. Oh, yeah. No, and just to get back to what Prince said about aging, is that, in astrology, we talk about your sun sign, right? And so that's about when the sun comes back around to the point of when you were born, right? So when I'm 40, basically I'm saying that the sun has gone around the earth, or rather, we have gone around the sun 40 times, right? As opposed to me saying I'm 40 years old. So that, on like a mental scale, like with how you word things, matter, right? So we can fall into like this age trap of being like, oh, well, I'm this old, so I should be doing this and I should be doing that. Like, well, no, you're on your own timeline, right? So maybe things will happen when they're supposed to happen. I have recently, when you turn 40 10 years ago, yeah, we think what's early and late. Yeah, so but you know what, like, it's not fair to compare our timeline to other people's timelines, right? Because they're obviously on a different timeline, and we should have a little bit more forgiveness with ourselves. And that doesn't mean being lazy, right? You should still, I was doing some oracle card readings today. I'd put my oracle cards, they're actually, they're based on your chakra system. We're going to do some of that tomorrow if you join me on the live in the day when I finally get my schedule sorted. Be kind to ourselves, but also exactly, like, I forget how the quote goes, but it's like, we should have so much discipline with ourselves that we can be free, right? So that we're not a slave to our vices, right? That we're not a slave to the things that we have done. Like, I used to have an eating disorder. I used to be like really unhappy with my body and like do things like medicate, right, in different ways to not deal with like the reality of what is. And the reality of what is actually quite magical, right? It's almost like we don't dare to believe that things can be so good. Like, I used to do this thing with myself where I'm like, well, that's too easy, right? So I'm going to create drama just to make it, like, especially in relationships. I've grown quite a lot in relationships, and like, of course, I'm celebrating my 10-year wedding anniversary, but I used to be a girl who was not a very good girlfriend, but I have learned from then, and I can appreciate those that I have loved, that 16-year-old me and 17-year-old me and 18-year-old me loved, right, at that time, and I can carry that, the lessons of that into this relationship, right? Okay, thanks, Angel Martinez. I appreciate that. I love the whole friendship bracelet thing too. We should bring those back. Friendship bracelets, wisdom. Yeah, there's no experience for it. Like, even the smartest of us, right? Where you're like, because for instance, when you're like 8, before you're clouded, your judgment gets clouded, and you're like jaded by the world, you actually know quite a bit. And I tell you guys to like, go back to the you before, let's say, you had like this idea of like, oh my gosh, Santa Claus isn't real, dragons don't exist, superheroes are dead. Like, do I ever collect manga? It's funny you mentioned manga, because my hubby was watching this really trippy anime before I was getting ready to get online with you guys, and I was like, what the heck? Are you just like dropping intel about ancient Atlantis all easy like that? But you know what? Manga and anime have been doing that forever, just like encoding lots of esoteric stuff into their things. Any tips on vices or addiction? Oh, okay, you guys. Just a brief moment on that before I get into this. I have a very obsessive personality. Both me and my hubby do, right? The trick is to rewire your vices into something like, because I had an eating disorder, I rewired that to becoming like I competed in fitness, which became its whole other thing. Like, you don't want to necessarily replace one vice with another vice, right? However, what I would say is to actually look at your loops. So typically our vices, like when I used to like bite my nails, for example, or let's say you're like twirling your hair, a lot of these are like subconscious tics. So it's a good idea. I like journaling and writing to myself. First, identify what habits or what vices you think are vices. Sometimes people think vices, like I've had clients of mine tell me certain things are vices, and I'm like, is that a vice? Maybe it's just how much time you spend on it, right? Like, for example, like social media, like we all can agree that we all have like an addiction to it. However, there are good sides to it, right? Like when I first went to school, I did this panel, or put together this panel about social media for social good. And so, like everything is kind of like a tool. It's how you wield it, including, when we like lump everything into like one category without having nuance behind it. So this is a really long roundabout way to answer your questions, Sahil, but I would say in terms of like what we consider negative vices or habits, the biggest thing to do with anything shadowy or evil or bad guy stuff, it hates light. So it hates things being brought to the surface. So the first thing is like realizing you have a vice, that you have a habit, identifying it, realizing it's something that you wish to change. That is like the first and probably biggest step. And I would recommend writing that down. And then once you know what it is, you can then look towards behaviors that are not necessarily negating that behavior, but ones that would more fulfill the goals that you want for yourself, as opposed to that vice. So sometimes that vice, like for example, we sometimes create habits or vices as a result to protect ourselves, right? So let's say you don't want to think about something, or you're going through grief. So you're like, okay, well, I'm going to like start like pulling paint off my wall